What's up, everybody? This is Jules with Clapback Culture alongside my co-host, Mike Davis of the South Seattle Emerald. What's up, Mike? Happy
what's up? Yes.
Let me get my afro together. Okay.
Hey. This is gonna be a good one. I'm feeling good, man. We got O in the back. We got Jake in the back, man.
Shout out to Jake, man. Yeah. We're out here, and we got our Converge t-shirts on. I swapped out you guys because I wanted to match like Mike. We look better like this.
Yeah, man. We're better in sync.
We are. It's been a crazy hell of a week. I told you off air that I'm doing this juice cleanse, and Amari's so funny. He's like, he thinks I'm just like using the bathroom every 30 seconds, but I'm not. I'm detoxing you guys. But on top of the detox, these headlines have been absolutely crazy. And then taking in everything that is this Derek Chauvin trial has been like really emotionally traumatic, bro. Like, so we are going to talk about that in the middle of the show, guys. We're going to really chop it up. But on the menu today, let's see what it is. We're going to be talking about Lil Nas X's and them Satan shoes that he dropped, which was crazy. We're going to get into that. We have a board member out of Cincinnati who took his shirt off in a meeting and wanted to know, is this patriotic enough? That was crazy. That was dope. We have more information. We told you we were going to come back with this week on Georgia's new controversial election law and what that means for voters. Representative Matt Gaetz is in the hot seat, and he is denying a sexual relationship with a 17-year-old girl. A lot of politicians in these sexual orientated stories. That's real wild. And then towards the end of the show, guys, we are going to dive deep into day 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the Derek Chauvin trial and what we now know. So let's go ahead and just jump right into it. We're going to pop in with Lil Nas X. Let me get all my stuff together right here. This was crazy, Mike. I know you are a sneakerhead, right?
Yes.
Anybody from Seattle is really a sneakerhead. Like, that's our thing, especially with, Nike being so close. So Nike filed a trademark infringement lawsuit against a small marketing company called Mischief that released a customized pair of its sneakers with satanic themes in collaboration with Lil Nas X to promote his new song. Let's go ahead and run the clip.
Nike sued a New York-based company on Monday over their Satan shoes, a pair of Nike Air Max 97 sneakers that contain a drop of human blood, made in collaboration with American singer and rapper Lil Nas X. The company MSCHF Product Studios started selling the black and red devil-themed shoes online this week. Nike said in its filing to a New York federal court that they were produced, quote, without Nike's approval and authorization. The company added they were in no way connected with this project. Lil Nas X is not named as a defendant in the suit. Several media outlets reported that the shoes sold out in less than a minute, each pair costing around $1,000. Nike asked the court to immediately stop MSCHF from fulfilling orders and requested a jury trial to seek damages.
Man, this was wild. Mischief is a pretty dope creative ad agency, you guys. They basically, the CEO and founder is like really there to cause like viral moments. That's how their whole agency is kind of going. And what we know about Lil Nas X, like even the video itself that kind of collaborated with these shoes was crazy satanic, but shout out to Lil Nas X for knowing like what, like if he wants to penetrate the market, like he definitely is going ham. Like he's in there grinding.
Yes.
He's like, you know, stripper pulling it out. Like he's doing a lot. Like he's having a lot of social media moments.
He's really good at using the internet. Like that's been something throughout his career. He's really good at marketing and promoting himself. I thought this case was really interesting though, because I mean, there's so many different boutiques across this country that take Nike shoes, customize them, and resell them. Nike doesn't typically sue those people for that.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, you know, he dropped the video where he was twerking on Satan, and then, you know, conservatives lost their mind. And then a lot of Christians also just lost their minds. And I think that in this particular situation, Nike wants to, like, they want to distance themselves from that bad PR. Because, I mean, yo, as a sneakerhead, those shoes, man, if you was lucky enough to get a pair, you get that pair. And the resale value on that shoe with the sticker price being $1,000 already, man, like that would have been a huge win if you could have got a pair.
So there were 666 pairs of shoes sold in the Bible. As you know, it's like
in
that,
minutes,
that is the mark of the beast. It's sold in 1 minute, and they were $1,018 per piece. I'm wondering how the hell they got their hands on so many pairs of those shoes to begin with. And Mike Davis, whose blood is that in the shoes? Who's dropping?
That is a good question, because that was the crazy part. Like, they got the blood in the bottom, and like, who gave their blood for this? Yeah, that part is a bit much, but yo, that shoe's hot. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, you would wear those?
I wouldn't wear them, but I would definitely buy them. Like, those are for the collection, you know? Definitely, yes.
I rebuke that in the name. We're gonna move on because that's a little Lil Nas X jumped off the deep end for me. I honestly am like scared of anything satanic. My grandma, rest in peace, my yai, she always told me that the devil can come through music and TV and all of that. So
did you watch this video?
I did watch the video because I had to come and talk about it. But
I was just curious.
But listen, I'm covered by the blood, honey. Like like my girl Danae Jackson, covered by the blood of the Lamb. And it's Easter week, so for him to drop that during Holy Week, woo! God bless you. Just listen. I'm not playing with the devil. That's what I know. So I'm not playing. I'm good. I'm not getting them shoes. Not one pair, not pair number 666, child. No, thank you.
Look, I did not watch the video, but from what I've read, because I mean, it's not for me. I don't have a problem with it. Do what you got to do. Nobody's going to force anybody to see it. But from what I've read, it was more so, you know, he grew up being gay, being told by Christians that he was going to go to hell. So the creativity of the video saying, oh, well, he's embracing that. So I get what he's doing with it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's people use demonic symbolism in music videos and movies and everything. Me personally, I stay away from that tenfold because I'm scared of it. I'm just,
it's not for me. It's not for me.
It's not for me. I don't want to support anything that has to do with any demonic symbol, point blank, period. No, thank you. Count Jules out. That's it. But I do appreciate Nas for really coming out, Lil Nas X on his journey of just like coming out. Like, I think we're watching him kind of grow up in front of our eyes. He does great music. And he actually has garnered a lot of support from other rap artists, you know, straight rap artists who are really like, yo, you're doing your thing, little homie. So I think he's doing his thing. It's not for me. It's for these young kids. I'm not that young anymore. I'm cool with the devil.
I feel the same way. Like, I do not think that it's for me. He can make what he makes. Everything ain't got to be for you. it's not for me. It's not for me.
Absolutely. So look, another shocking viral moment this week that we saw is Lee Wong. He made a really strong statement. He's a board member for the Westchester Township, a suburb in Cincinnati. He's 69. He's a retired military veteran who served 20 years of active duty and has been applauded for making a powerful statement about discrimination when he took off his shirt to reveal his war wounds. Let's go ahead and take a look.
People question my patriotism, that I don't look American enough. They could not get over this face. I'm 69 years old, and I'm going to show you what patriotism, the questions about patriotism looks like. This is sustained through my service in the US military. Now, is this patriot enough? I'm not ashamed to walk around anymore. When I was a couple years in the country, in Chicago, got beat up. He went to court, he never got punished for too long. You know, I have put up with a lot of shit in silence. Excuse me the language. Too afraid to speak out, fearing more abuse and discrimination. And they to question me my loyalty to this country. I don't look American enough. Now, last I read the US Constitution, we the people, we are all the same. We are equal. Not this, you are more superior, you are not.
Powerful moment. Mike Davis, what's your thoughts?
I thought that was big, you know, throughout these times. You know, I've had a lot of conversations with quite a few Asian folks just about how they feel and what they're going through. I've actually been asked to speak a couple of different times about solidarity in the Black and Asian communities. And just through this, one thing that I've heard over and over is that in some Asian cultures, it's their culture to not speak out, to kind of be silent, to be more held back, to be more refined. So to see him actually using his voice and showing his wounds and to say like, yo, I'm American. This is what happened to me on behalf of this country. That's big. And like for him and their culture, for him to do that was a really big step. And I'm sure it took a lot for him to do that. And I'm glad that he did.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think one of the things that I read about this and one of Mr. Wong's statements is that he didn't even know what came over him, but he felt like, you know, this was the right time and he wanted to make a statement. And, you know, with the growing number of anti-Asian hate crimes, you know, coming since the pandemic, the timing couldn't be more perfect. And I think we learned a valuable lesson in that American doesn't have to look the way that we perceive it. And, you know, he even still has a very strong accent and he's been here in the United States longer than he's been in any other country. So to have served in the military, I feel like, man, he's even more of a patriot than even I am. You know what I'm saying? Right. And his scars show that he put his life on the line for our democracy. So shout out to Lee Wong. He's a 69-year-old, you know, man. And he said that he spoke about it a little bit in the clip. And if you guys want to, you guys can go check out a longer clip. There's plenty of them, but I used a shorter version just to kind of get to the point. But he talked about how that attack in Chicago back in the day really changed his course of career. And that's why he joined the military. And then when he came out of the military, he was like, you know what? I'm not going to hold myself back anymore. I'm going to talk about the injustices that I see. So shout out to Mr. Wong for that powerful moment. Couldn't have come at a better time. And I appreciate him really doing that for real. Stand
up for your community, man. You got to.
Yeah, speaking of standing up for the community, it seems that the controversial bill in Georgia, a lot of advocates and civil rights group are standing up for the community and saying that this bill is all about voter suppression. We do have a clip. Let's go ahead and run that and we'll come back and talk about it.
President Biden let his anger and disappointment show over this new election law now in effect in Georgia. The president says his administration and the Department of Justice will take a look to see if they have any authority to respond over what he calls an assault on the Constitution. Georgia's new voting law is the next political flashpoint.
It's an atrocity.
President Biden condemned the new rules signed by Georgia's Republican governor Thursday that Brian Kemp describes as election security. But the president called out one new provision that forbids providing food and water to voters waiting in line.
This is nothing but punitive, designed to keep people from voting. You can't provide water for people about to vote. Give me a break.
Georgia's electoral flip from traditional red to 2020 blue gave President Biden and two Senate Democrats victories. The new law will now also require photo ID to request an absentee ballot, like voting in person.
It continues to, I think, will allow Georgia to have secure, accessible, fair elections.
But the White House says that could discourage elderly, poor, and minority voters, less likely to have government-issued IDs.
To intentionally, I believe, attempt to prevent whole populations of people from exercising their constitutional right to vote in their elections.
The administration clearly so eager to speak out, the president also used Twitter and a more formal statement vowing to act, while another deep partisan divide cuts across the southern border, a surge of migrants.
The Biden administration wants to hide what is going on here.
Republican senators pressuring the White House while posting their own video tours.
Humanitarian crisis.
Lawmakers of both parties travel to see crowded U.S. facilities where thousands of migrant children are held.
We're glad to see that the administration, the Biden administration, is building up the capacity to handle kids.
President Biden, of course, asked Kamala Harris to handle the White House response to what's happening at the border. And she was with reporters on Friday who asked her if she is at all concerned about the political risk she faces by taking on this assignment. She gave them a one-word answer: no.
Whoa. So they gave us the whole clip. They gave us the whole clip.
Okay.
Which is cool. So first of all, the voter stuff, those Georgia Republicans are so afraid that their state just went blue. They're going to do anything that they possibly can to stop that from happening. So what they're trying to do is make it so that people can't vote. And what I have to take this opportunity to do is to speak to people that are like me, people who are reluctant voters, people who probably feel like their vote doesn't matter at all. I felt like that most of my whole life. You have to pay attention to how hard they are working to stop our votes. They don't want us to vote. If our vote was meaningless, they would not be breaking their necks like this to make it so that we can't vote. So please understand that. As far as the end of that clip, I shouldn't laugh because it's not funny, but it's so absurd to me to see a bunch of lawmakers in boats with guards, with assault rifles, right on the heels of what happened with the assault rifle, where all those people just got killed. And these same people you see in this boat with armed guards at the border where families and children are crossing, they have nothing to say about all of the murders that are happening with assault. It's just crazy, man. It's crazy. America's a crazy place. That was just a crazy image to see. Like, who are they protecting themselves from? The kids trying to come here for safety? That's who they're afraid of. What about the people that are walking in grocery stores and shooting 10 and 20 people at one time? How are they not afraid of those people? That will never stop blowing my mind.
I find it ironic. I find it very ironic that Georgia is passing this new bill and I take issue with it, is because Georgia went through great lengths to promote that their election was secure during the time that Donald Trump was pressing out the Secretary of State to certify the election, to confirm that those votes were accurate. So it's troubling to me to see that now all of a sudden, here we are, a couple months later, we have to all of a sudden revamp and re-secure a voting system that was already secure, right? So it's kind of crazy, because literally the only reason that this bill is getting play is because more people of color got out there and changed the outcome of the election in the direction that Republicans don't want it to go. So let's talk about a little bit about this bill. This is 100+ page bill. We're not going to go over all of the provisions, but some of the ones that stick out is that it's limiting access to drop boxes. So there are going to be guaranteed drop boxes. It is limiting in-person voting, especially on Sundays, saying that some of these days may not be able to be on the calendar. It's limiting access to the use of vote by mail. All of these have shown a direct correlation of people of color participating in the election. So you're literally going back to say, okay, wow, we had a lot of Black and brown Democratic voters vote by drop boxes on Sundays and vote by mail. Let's go ahead and limit that so we can get a different election. So there's more things than just this idea of like, you can't give water to a voter. But here's the thing, you can't give food or water to somebody who's standing in line for hours at a time. Number one, why the hell are they having to stand in line for so long? Absolutely. And number two, being a person who has worked the polls, I know that we have been able to be like, oh, we're going to order pizza for the poll workers, or we're going to make sure that different organizations can come out there and feed the people in line. Why the hell do they need to call Uber Eats for themselves to stand in line to go vote when they just got off work? Like, that's absolutely absurd. And on top of that, I can catch a whole felony and lose my right to vote for giving somebody water. Come on now. Like, that's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. The Sunday part was big too, because, you know, a lot of those Black churches on Sundays after church, they're busing people to the polls. So like targeting that day specifically is literally targeting those Black voters who are getting those rides. So it's blatant. We see what they're doing. I just hope that, you know, somebody steps up and stops it.
You know what I really didn't like was the ballot boxes, right? So it's saying the ballot boxes are permanent, but only available at certain locations and during limited times. Okay, if I'm using a drop box, why can't if I work at night and I get off early in the morning, let's say I work at 11 o'clock shift. I used to work at 11. I used to work at the hotel from 11 p.m. till 8 a.m. or 7 a.m. So you're telling me that if I if I work from 7 a.m., I might need to jet home and go get my kids. If I have my ballot and I just want to go drop it off, I don't need to interact with anybody. I have to, figure out a certain time that drop box is going to be open. Why can't a drop box be 24 hours?
There's no reason why I can't.
Anyone needing to police the drop box. Like, the drop box should be outside like a straight mailbox, bro. Like, it shouldn't be anything else but that. Yeah. You do it like an ATM. You can have a drop box where you can go in and you can't get access to the box, but you can like drop your thing in and walk out. Like, you don't have to even physically see the whole box. It can be, the box itself can be in the building, but you can just drop it through. So honestly,
what is the idea behind needing ID to do mail-in ballots? I mean, if IDs aren't free, I don't understand why they will be required, because that means that voting is now not free. But if that's where you live and that's your address, that should be enough for you to be able to vote. Like,
so the provision now says that voters have to provide identification information to vote absentee. So maybe that's what you're talking about. It's saying yes. Georgia previously conducted signature matching by comparing the voter's signature on the outer envelope to a previous signature that they had on file. Now, to verify absentee ballots and applications, voters will need to provide their driver's license number or their identification number, and the last four of their social security number to verify the ballot. Georgia already requires voters to show a photo ID to do in-person voting, which I think is stupid too, because if I go to do in-person voting and I don't have an ID, I know so many people from around the way that do not have ID. Like that is such a huge thing here in DC. Like think about how many people are just like out on the block. They don't have ID. But if you go up to them and you're like, hey, I need you to go out, I need you to go vote, woo, woo, woo. Just come on, like jump in the van right now. We're gonna drop you off in the corner, you can go vote. They'll go in and vote and they're like, oh, I'm gonna go vote, and they're done. Think about if they don't have ID. We can't even get an appointment with DMV right now. Why are you putting a provision where people have to have an ID? If you have your voter registration card, if you can verify your address, your name, address, and your information on there, you should be able to go vote. You don't need no damn ID to go vote. That's corny. It's like, it's just another way to limit access. Stacey Abrams jumped out here and correlated this to Jim Crow. So she's not playing.
And I encourage all of y'all to pay attention. Pay attention to who it is that does not want people to vote, because it's telling. It's very, very telling.
It is telling. And if you don't think that, and I really encourage people to think about this happening in other states. And I saw somewhere in the comments where someone was saying like, this should be like, voting laws should be the same across the board. Like, why is it that it's different in DC than it is in Washington State, than it is in Arizona, that it is in Georgia? Is there some where can we find some middle ground? So I honestly think people don't need to have an ID to go vote. I think if you're voting absentee, what are you going to do? Do a photocopy of your ID? Do you have a printer at home? Like, how are you doing all that? Like, come on now. It's just too much work. And when it becomes too much work, people are just not going to vote. That's what they're counting on.
That's exactly what they're counting on.
Absolutely. And even just, I think the controversy around this whole issue is going to make people be like, but isn't there something with Georgia now that I can't vote because of this and that? So we'll see. Again, there's always ways around this, but we got to go ahead and we got to fix this. So there's lawsuits taking place by so many.
Yeah. Countless organizations have already filed lawsuits. So
the New Georgia Project, Black Voters Matter, NAACP, Common Cause. I mean, there's a ton of people that are coming at the provisions. Saying
so this isn't over. We will definitely we'll be back with some updates, because this will continue.
For sure. Moving forward to Matt Gaetz. People voted for his butt in office. He's a Florida Republican and a former ally of your boy Donald Trump. And he's under investigation over allegations that he had sex with an underage girl. Let's go ahead and run that.
To that headline about Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, first reported in the New York Times. ABC News now confirming he is being investigated by the Justice Department over an alleged relationship with an underage girl. Gaetz denying any wrongdoing while claiming he's the target of an extortion attempt. Mary Bruce has the latest for us. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Robin. This is a truly bizarre story. This morning, the Florida congressman is reportedly under federal investigation, and now he is fighting back. He is adamant that these allegations of sexual misconduct are false, and in a head-scratching interview overnight, he says this is all rooted in an attempt to extort him. Overnight, Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, a rising conservative star and close ally of former President Trump, insisting he did nothing wrong.
It is a horrible allegation, and it is a lie.
The New York Times breaking the news, reporting the Justice Department is investigating whether Gaetz had a sexual relationship with a 17-year-old girl and paid for her to travel with him, potentially violating sex trafficking laws. A source aware of the investigation has confirmed some details to ABC News.
The person doesn't exist. I have not had a relationship with a 17-year-old. That is totally false.
Gaetz reportedly telling Axios, I have definitely in my single days provided for women I've I've dated. I've paid for flights, for hotel rooms. I've been, generous as a partner. I think someone is trying to make that look criminal when it is not, adding he is, quote, absolutely confident none of the women were underage. Overnight, Gates claiming he's the actual victim here of an extortion scheme.
A person demanded $25 million in exchange for making horrible sex trafficking allegations against me go away.
He says the investigation is part of a politically motivated campaign to damage his reputation. But the probe was reportedly launched last year in the final months of the Trump administration.
I do believe that there are people at the Department of Justice who are trying to smear me.
The interview leaving the Fox News host baffled.
If you just saw our Matt Gaetz interview, that was one of the weirdest interviews I've ever conducted. I don't think that clarified much.
Now, Gates says he was actually cooperating with the FBI on this extortion case, and now he's demanding that they release audio and documents that he says are relevant. Meanwhile, the person that Gates is accusing in this extortion case has denied any wrongdoing in an interview with the Washington Post. And this morning, the Justice Department is still not commenting on this case, TJ.
Eek, eek, eek. So Mike Gates is he's another person who likes the camera. So I think he's soaking this up. He's kind of hella weird. Mike Davis, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, look, I'm not going to rush to convict the man before all of the facts are accounted for. That wouldn't be fair. However, I did watch that interview on Tucker Carlson, and he did not make things look good for himself at all. I think his biggest argument in that interview was, hey, Tucker, you were accused of sexual assault too. And it was just like, whoa, like that can't be your defense, man. But that was pretty much all he had, besides reassuring us that he always was sure to pay when he flew women around. So it's like, none of this really says that you're innocent, buddy. So it looks bad. It looks real bad. But again, we got to let this play out. And I don't want to jump the gun and call him guilty too early.
Yeah, we don't want to call it too early. But this is a part. Well, first of all, let me just comment on the fact that interview was real crazy. And he was really trying to distance himself. He was like, yeah, that was weird. So on to the next thing. This is a part of a larger investigation. The New York Times first reported this. It's being investigated first under Attorney General Barr when he was around, and it's about his homie. Okay, it's a Seminole County tax collector, Joe Greensburg. So in August, he was charged with sex trafficking of girls ages 14 to 17. And he has like over 14 different federal charges, including stalking a political opponent by allegedly impersonating the candidate in a fake Twitter account and claiming the rival was a white supremacist. So this is stretching a long way. And then somehow in the reports, Gates got caught up in this mix. So we shall see what happens. Allegedly, he has done this. He's saying he didn't. We'll see what happens. I mean, a lot of these politicians seems to like young girls and like sexual harassment. So I don't put it past them.
I wouldn't put it past them either. I mean, the facts is for sure going to come out, but yeah, so far it does not look good. And the more that comes in, the worse that it looks for this guy. So
they say you are the company you keep. So if you're hanging out with Greensburg and you're kicking it with Trump, I mean,
now he's in Florida, so Florida, they got different sensibilities down there. So we'll see if he can survive this. But
yeah, well, he's coming out. He's a couple of girls are like, we got flued out. He flies them out, and he likes to pay like he weighs. So
that he admitted to. So
maybe he's just a sugar daddy.
Yeah, that interview was bizarre. Like I couldn't believe it.
I love it. What's up, Mike Gates? Pull up. Got a couple homies who want some flights. Well, look, you guys, we are going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we are going to get a little bit more serious and dive deep and talk about the key takeaways of the Derek Chauvin trial.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
Welcome back to Clapback Culture. I am your co-host, Julia Jessie, alongside my big homie, Mike Davis, South Seattle Emerald. So look, we did see in the comments, a lot of you guys like the shirts and want to support Converge. We want to do a t-shirt giveaway. We want to do some type of giveaway because we know you guys like it. You guys want to be a part of the culture, you know. It's nice and comfy too. I mean, I love wearing my hoodie all the time. So
mine too, you know.
So look, in addition to donating to Converge to keep us on air, please make sure you support. Go purchase one of these. Go purchase a hoodie. Go purchase some merch, and rock your stuff. You know, in fact, when I was in Seattle for the anniversary show, I was walking to Pike Place Market, and somebody was like, "Hey." And I was like, what? And he was like, hey, do you know Amari? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, yeah, I went to school with his son. I like your shirt. I was like, oh, okay, good. So he basically knew from the Converge that I was on the team. So that was dope. So yeah, if you guys want to be a part of the brand, you know, and represent, please go support, go purchase. And me and Mike Davis, we're going to come up with a nice contest to see who can win a hoodie or a t-shirt. Oh, Doris said she got her zipper. That's right, sis.
Of course.
And we'll make sure to drop the link so you guys can go purchase some merch. But, you know, whereweconverge.com, you can always find everything from there. So, Mike Davis, it's been a heavy week. We are in day 4 of this trial. And as the murder trial kind of goes on, we're going to, you know, just take a look at some of the powerful testimony that we heard. I believe this is more testimony from day 2 and 3. Today we heard, it was day 4. We also heard some statements that kind of just floored me. So let's take a look at what we have. When we come back, we're going to chop it up and just catch everybody up on some of the key takeaways.
They watched George Floyd die. Today, they took the stand in the murder trial of the now fired Minneapolis cop, Derek Chauvin. We heard from a mixed martial artist seen here in police body cam video who yelled at officers, "Get off that man." He testified he could hear and see George Floyd gasping for air while his neck was under Chauvin's knee.
At some point, did you make a 911 call?
That is correct. I did call the police on the police.
Right. And why did you do that?
Because I believe I witnessed a murder.
We heard from a teenager who recorded the now infamous cell phone video of Chauvin kneeling on Floyd's neck for more than 9 minutes. The court decided we can't show her face because of her young age.
It's been nights. I stayed up apologizing and apologizing to George Floyd for not doing more and not physically interacting and not saving his life.
Several of the eyewitnesses to George Floyd's death who were testifying are not being shown on camera because they're so young, including a 9-year-old whose voice quivered as she recalled all that she saw. NBC's Jay Gray, live outside the courthouse in Minneapolis. Jay, emotional and compelling testimony all day.
Yeah, Shep, you're absolutely right. And as you described so well, it was a very difficult day in that courtroom. Some of the most compelling, gripping testimony came from a Minneapolis firefighter and EMT who lives in the neighborhood and just happened upon the scene the day George Floyd died. Genevieve Hansen moved to tears as she described what she saw, telling jurors she was off duty but desperate to help, approaching police, identifying herself as a medic, and offering to check George Floyd's pulse and start chest compressions if necessary. But she says officers just told her to move to the sidewalk with the rest of the crowd.
I offered to walk them through it, or told them, if he doesn't have a pulse, you need to start compressions, and that wasn't done either. I would have been able to provide medical attention to the best of my abilities, and this human was denied that right.
Yeah, during cross-examination, the defense team did push back, saying that with police already there, it stood to reason that medics would be on the way, and asking Hansen if the situation was distracting or hostile because of the emotions of those who had gathered there.
Would you describe other people's demeanors as upset or angry?
I don't know if you've seen anybody be killed, but it's upsetting.
Now, you may remember an opening statement, Shep, that Chauvin's defense team said that they believe the growing and angry crowd really played into what happened that day. Today, a separate witness said there were about a dozen people there and that their outrage and pleas for Chauvin to release the hold only seemed to make him shift his weight and apply more pressure to Floyd's neck.
It's the last part for me. I have been glued to this because I feel like I have an obligation for historical reference to understand what's going on so I can tell my kids about America being on trial. And what we see in Jessie's 4 days is that so many more details are being revealed. The defense attorney for Derek Chauvin is trying to paint out a crowd, a bunch, a dozen of 12 people out to be this angry mob, when really they are innocent bystanders who are traumatized. There were so many minors in that crowd, a 9-year-old little girl, 3 17-year-old girls, a 61-year-old man, a 27-year-old EMT who came and said, you know what, I can offer medical assistance. And they said no. So when we talk about a crowd, we're really talking about residents. We're talking about the 61-year-old man, Charles McMillan, who you know by his testimony that he is somebody from the neighborhood. He knows people in the neighborhood. He knew Derek Chauvin. He knew him to be a police officer in that community. And so when we watch this trial, when we watch the characterization of George Floyd really being assassinated and being and the defense really digging deep in him having an addiction to opioids, when we know that's a huge crisis that we're suffering with here in America. It's disgusting. And I am patiently waiting to watch how all of this unfolds, but I'm disgusted at how the defense is trying to spin this narrative that there was this angry mob that was threatening the scene, and the police officers were unable to act. They were unable to do their job. But we have heroes like Genevieve Henson, 27-year-old firefighter and EMT, who stood on that stand and said there would be nothing that would break my focus in that moment, because I'm confident in my training, so that if somebody had a cell phone at me, I wouldn't care. If somebody was shouting at me, I wouldn't care, because I'm so confident in my training that I know I'd be able to offer assistance. And so it's people like Genevieve Henson that stand, that get up on that stand and don't waver. It's the 9-year-old little third grader who witnessed that, who's going to be traumatized for the remainder of her life, who said that she felt sad and kind of mad when she watched Derek Chauvin continue to kneel on the neck of George Floyd, even after paramedics arrived. When we hear the testimony of paramedics who say that when they arrived, they thought that George Floyd must still be resisting arrest, but when they got there, they saw that he was already dead. It's the 911 dispatcher who thought that her screen was frozen because he was on George Floyd's neck too long. But I appreciate all of the witnesses that have come to testify already. I think that they've done an amazing job at continuing to not call George Floyd a victim, but to call him by his name. And it's just, this is history that we're watching right now, and America's on trial, and we'll see what happens soon. Mike Davis.
I hope that we can keep the narrative of America being on trial, because for a long time it felt like George Floyd was on trial, and it sounded like so much was pointed at George Floyd when, I mean, he was murdered. This is not his trial. This is Derek Chauvin's trial. I honestly tried to not watch. I mean, it's easier for me to read than to watch, I should say. So like at first I was just like reading afterwards, but I mean, this is the biggest story in the country right now, so there's no way that you can't watch. And I think what really got me was Donald Williams, the MMA fighter who recognized the type of chokehold and who was having the dialogue trying to get Derek Chauvin to stop. And what really jumped out about his testimony to me was how they tried to go out of their way to paint him as an angry black man, just the same way they're trying to paint the crowd as an angry mob. And it just, I mean, how are you supposed to feel when you're watching somebody be murdered? Like, what is your emotional state supposed to be when you're watching somebody be murdered? Because when I hear the testimony from the people in the crowd, what I really hear is humanity. It's hard. It makes your heart ache to hear that some of those people blame themselves. Some of those people, after witnessing that day, they felt like somehow it was their fault. And that's what breaks my heart in those testimonies, because it's not their fault and there was nothing that they could do. And if they would have tried anything more than using their voices, they probably would have ended up dead too. So just hearing that hurts, but just the idea that the police blame everyone besides themselves for their mistakes. And when we talk about their quote unquote mistakes, it's taking people's lives. Like that is the biggest of mistakes that you could possibly make. And you would think that people that have that much responsibility would have a higher standard of excellence in their profession. But what we see so oftentimes is that there is no standard in their profession. They got police unions that protect them. They got qualified immunity that makes sure that, you know, if there's a civil case, it's the taxpayers that pay instead of the cops. Like, there's so many things put in place to remove the police from accountability. And now we have this situation where the defense is literally trying to flip it on the crowd and blame the witnesses for the crime. Like, his knee was already on his neck. What does it matter the emotional state of anybody that's watching? The murder is already happening. He's already there. So it's just, it was hard to watch, but it was good to see the people on the stand. They held their composure. Mr. Williams held his composure even when he was dang near being badgered. The lady that was a firefighter that they didn't let help him, I mean, she held her composure as well. And yeah, it's hard to watch. And I guess for me too, what also keeps jumping into my mind is the fact that in the history of the city of Minneapolis, there has only been one cop in history that has ever been convicted for murder in their city. And that just happens to be that black cop of Somali descent, Muhammad Noor, I believe his name was, and he accidentally shot that white woman. He got convicted. And that was like right on the heels of Philando Castile after those cops got off, even with the video that we saw from his partner. So it really, really hurts, because in my heart of hearts, I don't believe that we're going to get a conviction. And I hope that we do, but it's so unbelievable to say, but I would be surprised if Chauvin gets convicted.
Unfortunately, I hate to agree with you here, but I agree. I think this thing is probably going to end in a mistrial. We've already seen one juror not being able to stomach what's going on, who's saying, I can't sleep and I can't eat. And I just don't know how long these jurors are going to be able to watch George Floyd be murdered over and over and over again from all different types of angles, from body camera footage, from cell phone footage, from security cameras. I mean, we're watching everything that led up to the event itself, and things that happened thereafter. We even have body camera footage of police officers and paramedics in the hospital, in the actual ambulance. One thing that stood out to me was during Genevieve Henson's testimony. She's the firefighter, the EMT, and she was asked about Mike.
I'm back. I got kicked out. I didn't even hear the last thing you said. I see your emotion right now, but I just got kicked out of the feed, so I wasn't here.
I'm just, this whole thing is traumatizing. It's
for all of us
to watch this go over and over and over and over. I had a difficult time watching it, but again, I really felt like I had an obligation to see this thing all the way through. Genevieve Henson talked about how our memories are fallible, and that thank God we have this video footage to back it all up. And we think about this trial and whether or not we're going to get a conviction or not. And we see it playing out on every single angle you can possibly have. This is going to be a 4-week trial. This is 4 weeks. They have so many witnesses. They're in the courtroom for 8 hours going at it and doing cross-examination on everybody. We saw George Floyd's girlfriend on the stand today. We saw the paramedics on the stand today. We saw different sergeants on the stand today to talk about the use of excessive force. There's so many things that are happening and coming out in this trial, and it's just even more devastating. So to your point, Mike, will we see a conviction? I don't know. I do want to remind our viewers just really quickly that Floyd's death was declared a homicide by the Hennepin County Medical Examiner Office. I hope I'm saying that right. And they concluded that he died from cardiopulmonary arrest complicating law enforcement, subdual restraint, and neck compression. And so, but what we do know is that the defense is making the argument that it also had other things to do with him having heart disease, being under the influence of fentanyl and other methamphetamines. So we will see how this goes and how much is going to roll out. But again, powerful testimony that we saw, so many things that stood out. Genevieve Hanson even was going back and forth with the judge. She was rolling her eyes. She was very colorful. And the judge is kind of no nonsense. And he is cutting people off every single time they make a statement about, I'm not comfortable around police because I'm Black, or I don't feel, anytime they kind of go into that direction, he cuts them off at the knees. But she really spoke truth to power. And, to your point, Mike, she talked about, she kept questioning the defense attorney, like, I'm not angry. I'm crying out for help. This is not me being angry. This is me feeling desperate to watch a man being killed, and I can't do anything about it. And so why the defense is creating this angry mob narrative, people are showing signs of desperation.
It was a desperate situation. It's so hard, man. Like there's this whole narrative that we have in this country of police officers as heroes. Yet we have situations like this, and where's the hero? Like, well, there were other. It's not even like this was a one-on-one situation with Derek Chauvin and an angry mob where he needed protection. There were multiple police officers on the scene. Nobody did anything to stop this. They all just stood there while a man died screaming for his mom. Like,
and the defense tried to spin that today too and say that he wasn't crying out for his mom. He was crying out for his girlfriend, who he also calls mama. So what, like, first of all, why is that even relevant to the case? And number two, George Floyd is not on trial. Derek Chauvin is on trial. And so let's talk about him. Let's talk about who he has saved in his phone. Let's talk about his excessive use of force. George Floyd is not on trial, period. So I don't want to hear any more about his addiction to methamphetamines or opioids or any of that. I don't want to hear any more about that. And I feel like it's irrelevant to the fact that this police officer used excessive force. And so what we do know is that the jury has to see that there was intent, right? And so the judge is really calling for jurors to pull out the emotion and say, please don't be emotional, but act against the law. So I don't know, Mike, do you think that they're going to be able to separate the emotion in this to come out with a verdict?
I don't know how any human being with a heart could take emotion out of this case. I don't see how that could be possible. But I mean, I have to just look at history. Cops lose civil cases all the time, but criminal cases, like criminal convictions on police for murder, they are extremely rare. And like I said, in Minneapolis, in the history of their police force, there's literally only been one case, and it just happened to be the time that a black cop accidentally shot a white woman. But they've never done it before, video evidence or not. So I don't feel confident.
I'm telling you, that's why I really call there needs to be some type of oversight on police. There has to be a committee that says how this training should be conducted. On top of the fact that where is the police that used to be in the communities? You know, back in the day, we had Officer Cookie, who I think now is the chief of police in Seattle, right? Or she has some.
She's still there. Seattle's very interesting. There's still some community police. I used to work at Bitter Lake Community Center in the late night program, man. We had Officer Vargas and Gabby, my guy Vince, man. Like those cops would come in and hoop with the kids. My guy Vince would bring his Nintendo Switch and be on the sticks, and Vargas is a clown telling jokes, and they actually made connections with the kids. There were also instances where our kids would get in trouble. Man, the police would call the community center instead of taking our kids in. So like, you do have those connections, but in the movement in Seattle with the defund and going against police, that's not even a thing anymore, man. All those got pulled. So we have to figure out a medium, like a place where we can meet, because there are cops that do want to be in the community and have those connections. So it's a complicated situation.
You need to have people from the community. I think you got to have more police presence and have that police presence be positive interactions, not just pulling up to the scene when there's an incident. Right. I think if you understand, there also needs to be more training when dealing with someone who may be under the influence. If you believe that someone's under the influence or having some type of psychotic episode, why are we going straight for a takedown and then putting our knee on somebody's neck and holding them down? Like, where is the interruption there? You know what I'm saying? Like, we need to have a different tactic. And
I think it will also help if we had more of an effort to have cops actually be a part of the communities where they are responsible for. You know what I mean? So like, when I speak about my experience in late night, all of those cops that I just named, they're all people of color. And they all grew up in neighborhoods with people of color. And you know what I mean? So like my guy Vince, for example, he's from Memphis. He grew up in the hood. So like, when he's dealing with these kids, he knows how to talk to them. And like, those cops are not just naturally afraid of our kids, because those cops used to be our kids. So it really, really helps to have that sort of representation on your police force.
I mean, and everybody has their biases, right? Like everyone shows up to their biases, but the thing is you have to be able to put that stuff in check, right? And you should not be a police officer if you're going to be scared in every single situation that you come into encounter with. George Floyd was a big dude, but that should not, when you sign up for the police academy, that you're going to come up against people that are bigger than you, that are smaller than you, that may be under the influence of drugs, that may be armed, that may be dangerous. But then you're going to come into encounter with people who, like George Floyd, who may have resisted arrest in the beginning, but then acquiesced and said, you know what, win. On the tape, he says, you win.
Yeah,
I want to get in the car.
Why are we policing petty crime so hard? Like, and man, the testimony from the person that was working there that wanted to pay for him, it's just like, we're doing all of this over $20. Is it really worth it? Is this what we really need? Like, I don't understand that, man. My first job that I had was at Nike Town. So going back to us being sneakerheads, like that's where I worked, spent all my money there. You know how many people I watched steal from Nike Town and I never said a word? What do I care? Like you think Nike is hurting from petty theft? No, it's not gonna break them. Like, I just don't understand why we have to treat people this way. Where's the humanity? If somebody has to pay with a fake 20, I don't think they're doing it just to get over. I think they're in a situation where they need these little items, man. Let them have that. I just don't, man.
That's such an interesting point.
Mary, and can I jump on Mary Young right now? Like, crime is crime. Like, really, crime is crime. Like, that's crazy talk. Like, a man just got murdered over $20, and your answer is crime is crime. Like,
crime
not all crime needs to be punished the same way. And when did cops become executioners? I don't care what George Floyd did. George Floyd could have went in there and killed somebody, man. Like, you're not an executioner. We have a legal system. You arrest him. You arrest him the same way that mass murderer just got arrested peacefully. I just don't understand how every time it's one of us, no matter what is happening, it's crime is crime. Nah, man. Cops shouldn't be killing anybody. It's not your job to murder. It's your job to protect and serve. Where's the murder in that? Who are they protecting in the George Floyd case? Who did he hurt? He didn't hurt anybody. You got a victimless crime and a man lost his life for it. There's no excuse for that.
I agree. Crime is not crime, period. I mean, if we go back to the new Georgia law, it's a felony to give somebody water who's standing in line to vote. You're going to arrest me for giving a 65-year-old lady, an 80-year-old lady who's standing in line for 4 hours water. That's a felony conviction. I could lose my right to vote because I decided to be human and give somebody water. There's absolutely that. I mean, crime is not crime. And I think, it's easy to say that when you've never been held by scrutiny by the color of your skin.
Yeah, it's real easy to say that when your Abby is in your face. like put your face on that statement with your colorful Abby. I'm not hearing that. Crime is not crime. Go look at the statistics. Who's sitting in our prisons right now, man? There's real specific people that get the business end of this criminal punishment system in this country. Crime is crime when it's black folks. Crime is crime when it's brown folks. But I'm not seeing people in your community being over-policed the way people in my community are.
And there it is. And we're going to leave it on that note. Mike Davis, we're 4 minutes over our time, but this has been a great conversation. We are going to keep up with the Derek Chauvin trial and everything that kind of comes out of that. Again, we appreciate you guys coming to watch every single day. Before we wrap, I do want to recognize Andrew Room. And so he actually was the person in the investigation. I think I misspoke, if that's what Amari is telling me. Hold on. Oh, he's a supporter. How do we say his name? Andrew. Shout out to Andrew Vroom such a supporter of Converge and this show. Boom. We appreciate you. We really appreciate everybody who comes on every single week to come and chop it up with us. Even you, Mary Young, don't think because we clap back at you that you're not welcome. You're more than welcome. And
I'll see you next week, Mary. Slide you. But you better stop harassing Dora, man. We don't stand for that.
I mean, this is the thing. We're here to have a dialogue. Everything that me and Mike say is not gold, right? And so we want to hear from you. We want to be able to have these transparent conversations where you say something, I say something. And even though we don't agree, we still are able to show up in this space because this space is safe. So please come back. We watch your guys' comments. We hear what you guys are saying, and we do want to we want to generate this dialogue because things that you might say to us, we might learn, and things you might hear from us, you may learn from us too. So we appreciate the support. You guys can find me on Instagram and Twitter at treasureofjules. Please go and follow me. Mike Davis, where can I find you?
You can find me South Seattle Emerald. Anywhere you find the Emerald, you're gonna find your boy. You could also find me on Twitter at Real M Davis. Also got to give a shout out to Christina for rocking with us tonight. I saw you. Long time no see, but glad to see you here.
Yes, and shout out to all my homies that pulled up in these comments, man. I'm glad to see you guys. Look, we'll be back next Thursday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You know where to find us. This is Clapback Culture on Converge Media. See you.
Peace.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.